o'clock on Thursday afternoon. We'll go ahead and get started today. So just want to say thanks to everybody for being here. My name is Mike Burkholtz. I'm with the General Services Administration today, serving as the co-host and co-chair of the Internet of Things Smart Cities working group under the I Act Emerging Technologies Community of Interest. I've got my partner in crime, Pete Saronis from Dots and Bridges. Pete and I put together monthly or every other month, we have a session like this where we bring key leaders together to talk about things related to IoT and the ecosystem around that, new technologies and interesting things. Today, we've got a very, I think, exciting panel. I'm looking forward to this, titled Transforming Healthcare. We're going to get into a little bit of artificial intelligence, some precision medicine, and IoT. All together wrapped into one. Got a lot of personal interest here, so you're going to hear from some really interesting thought leaders and practitioners in this space. So very excited to get this going. Pete, I'm going to hand it over to you, and let's just not waste time talking about ourselves, and let's talk about our panelists and get going.
You're the man, Mike B. Thank you for the intro, and again, everybody who's joined in the past. This is the Mike and Pete show. We represent the Emerging Technology COI. I work for Dots and Bridges. I like to connect dots and build bridges, and that's what we're doing today. We got 58 minutes and an amazing panel of experts, and we encourage everybody to please chat, ask them questions. Sorry, we're not putting everybody's video on, but we know the rule of the road is we want you to focus on what they're saying, and we appreciate any and all questions that come our way, and we will be playing this and producing it so folks can watch later. If you have to leave early, hint, hint, Jay Huey, who told me he would be. Jay Huey is the man, CIO that he is. Okay, everybody. Today, transforming healthcare. There's a lot in the title, leveraging AI, precision medicine, and the IoT to drive better outcomes. We're going to hit on that. We have two amazing individuals from the National Institutes of Health and folks from industry, and one who used to walk about inside of the federal government. So let me do this really quick. Chuck Lynch, PhD, Dr. Lynch, Director, IT Resources and Security at the HHS, which then you break down to NIH, but then you break down to the Office of Portfolio Analysis. And yes, I spent about 35 minutes this morning going through where is Chuck's office in the massive NIH, which is one of the operating divisions. And please, you should check out how massive it is. So those of you who call into or try to find these folks, you're going to have to do your homework. Great to see you, Chuck. And each of these folks are going to do an introduction and talk a little bit about, their journeys. But it's an honor to be talking with my buddy Chuck again. 40 years of service and just an amazing thought leader. We've got Thomas Osborne, Dr. MD, Thomas Osborne, Chief Medical Officer, Microsoft. Yes, there's this federal civilian thing, but this guy's a doctor and has taught me a lot. And when he talks, you're going to be very, very excited about the future of healthcare and the opportunity that technology is enabling that industry to just move forward and accelerate. Another doctor, Austin Bazidlo. I got that right. I see him smiling. Austin, Chief Data Science and AI Application Branch at the NIH. And yes, if you Google any of these folks, you'll see that Austin also has a wonderful history at the SSA. He's kind of new to the NIH, but he's not new to data science. He's not new to AI. Those of you in the federal community, you probably should be following him. He's extremely talented and super smart. And just for the record, his office is even buried further in the office of the director in a good way. But boy, oh boy, that one took me about, 20 of the 35 minutes. So 5 minutes longer to find you, Austin. So we're looking forward to hearing about you. And if you do, and you want to reference, it used to be, if I'm not mistaken, a different name, which thank God they changed it, frankly. And I think what you're doing is amazing. Last but not least, my buddy Viren Yadov. I might have said that wrong. I did not ask for the specific phonetics. And Viren, who is somebody I've gotten to know over the last several months, is our industry side of the house for these working group discussions. You can't do this without government, industry, and academia. And Viren has really, opened my eyes to how his company inside the Beltway is supporting multiple critical infrastructure sectors, most notably in this case, healthcare, and the applications they're developing and the partnerships and how they're forming and how they're fortified and how he's building bridges, if you will. So it's awesome to have Viren on as well. So with that, it's 105. Very impressed with myself because I could suck the air out of the call. I'm going to go to Chuck Lynch, who is going to give himself the floor and talk a little bit about his journey, his awesomeness. Chuck, floor is yours.
I appreciate that, Pete. Yeah, I'm Chuck Lynch. I've been an engineer for about 40 years. I have a background in not only design in something like aerospace, but also internet, the Internet of Things, internet services, networking, and then ultimately got into data. And that's what brought me to NIH, because biomedical data, biomedical science data is, I think, the most complex data there is. And so this really intrigued me. I have spent the last 15 to 20 years of my career really focusing on technology transformation and the research around that transformation. What impedes it? What helps it move forward? So Pete, back to you.
Great. I was writing down just something that I want to make sure we hit on. Folks, the tech transformation component of Chuck's 40 years. And by the way, all these people are approachable as long as you've done their homework, in my view, and we're going to hear a lot about their stories. But thank you. And Chuck has also, folks, worked in that wonderful ping power pipe world. It's where I met him many, many moons ago with IPv6. I got to do this. Chuck, he's a Georgia Mason Patriot, a USC Trojan. He's a U.S. Air Force Fighting Falcon. So thank you. More about his DNA. All right, let's pivot. Dr. Osborne, floor is yours.
Yes, sir. Thanks so much. I'm a board certified medical doctor, and I've been working at the intersection of healthcare, technology, and business for most of my career. Really, I'm driven to solve problems that have a broad positive impact. You do that a lot of different ways, but I think technology is super powerful. So using a lot of advanced technologies, AI, analytics, cloud, sensors, wearables, telehealth, et cetera. And, in my career, I've had a spectrum of related leadership in industry government roles, and now proud to be, as you said, the chief medical officer for Microsoft Federal Civilian. And if you were to solidify or sort of summarize that, I think the best way to do it is my role is really to help others be successful.
Well, I love that. And let me brag a little bit more. And shout out to Tiffany Chu, who made an awesome connection for me. Well, you're a UCSB Gaucho, you're a Dartmouth Big Green, you're a UCLA Bruin, you're a Hartford Crimson. And if I missed any, my bad, but that was pretty impressive. Also, former director of VA's National Center for Collaborative Healthcare Innovation and the executive director of the VA Convergence Center. I hope I said all that correctly, but we are honored and excited to have a practitioner. And thank you for shouting out the technology underpinnings, Dr. Osborne, that are part of the future of healthcare. And we're going to talk a lot about hope today. So this is not about the diving into IT infrastructure and cloud and data and analytics and privacy. That's all important. And you're going to get a lot of links, those who are attending, on how you can read up on this. But we're thinking about how are we going to extend life moving forward. Okay. Austin, Dr. Austin, floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Pete, and thank you all for welcoming me today. I am Dr. Austin Bazidlo. I'm a medical physicist by training, which doesn't sound like a real thing. It kind of sounds like a nuclear psychiatrist or a rocket surgeon, but it's really a catch-all term of how the physical sciences world meet the biological sciences and healthcare. So a lot of my training is in nuclear medicine, MRI, X-ray, CT, radiation therapy, all those types of things. So I've gotten to see the intersection of the worlds of the physics as well as what's going on in a hospital. And we're a field that rapidly deploys technology. I'll give you a cool example. The X-ray was discovered in 1895 by Röntgen in Germany. 1 year later, it was used in the clinic in 1896, which is pretty fast turnover. My background, I completed a fellowship at the University of Chicago in the lab of Marielle Geiger, who was a seminal developer of computer-aided diagnosis and computer-aided detection using AI. And from then, I've gone on to work in the federal government space, but at the Social Security Administration and now NIH, where I've helped as an AI policy SME to develop our AI strategy, as well as spearheaded numerous AI projects. And I also serve on a number of interagency working groups around AI, particularly the Gen AI working group for the CAIO Council, where I serve as co-chair, which has really given me the opportunity to see how all of these agencies, not just HHS, but the VA, HUD, as well as some of the defense and national security agencies, are approaching AI, how they're working together. They're all extremely eager. It's a very fast-moving pace for government. So it's so exciting to see how all of these technologies are being embraced by agencies and how quickly it's moving.
Well, Austin, thank you. And folks, if you didn't catch it, first of all, facts tell, stories sell. So I love the X-ray stories, and we're going to do a lot of the 4 examples today. But Austin, I also just want to say that I was able to find out what the name, if you will, of your former, or what is now a cool title, Data Science and Artificial Intelligence Application Branch, formerly known as Utilities Engineering Branch. So to me, a lot sexier than what it was, but I'm sure it was great. So again, folks, these are our guests, but I'm going to now finish last but not least. Viren, floor is yours. Take it away.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks, everyone, for joining the call. I have 24 years of technology experience, by nature a technologist throughout my career. Started my career long back with mainframes, Unisys, IBM, and kind of have seen technology evolve over the last 25 years and how that has been solving business problems. I have worked across industries, from banking to insurance to transportation, and then pretty much settled on healthcare last 18 years or so. I'm working with a company called Innova Solutions, which is a cutting-edge technology solutions and a service provider, where we build solutions for various business verticals, and healthcare is one of our focus, including public sector. Prior to this, I've worked as a CIO for a large healthcare organization where I was catering to the government Medicaid benefit programs, health and human services, and whatnot. And I've been pretty much involved into developing and implementing solutions across healthcare, from population health, social determinants of health, clinical, increasing the clinical outcomes, all claims, improving the claims processing, reducing the admin costs and whatnot. So across the whole ecosystem of healthcare, and we've been focused more on quadruple, aim of healthcare, which I'll be talking later in our call here. So very nice to be here. Pete, back to you.
Awesome. Hey, it's 1:13, and most people will appreciate we're going to knock through, and we want folks to ask questions. Just to put it in perspective, if you're wondering again how to navigate the wonder world of HHS, operating divisions separate from the Office of the Secretary, our good friends at the NIH specifically are in an operating division. The CIO of HHS, because all of the technologists on this call might want to know, sits in the Office of the Secretary. So have fun with that, and you could spend some time, sip some whiskey while you're looking through the organizational chart of HHS. Okay, Chuck, let's bring it back to you, man. Biomedical data science, critical infrastructure, supercomputing. Let's take this topic. If we're transforming healthcare and technologies underpinning, how does all this come together? Not just at the NIH. How do you begin thinking about this, and who are the people that have to come together to kind of move that needle?
Well, that's a very good question. It essentially touches everything, right? What we're talking about is the assimilation of information and knowledge through various means, whether it's the Internet of Things or artificial intelligence. When you can accumulate knowledge in a single place, if you have perfect knowledge, then the only thing you need to solve any problem is logic, right? This is actually well-founded in economic theory. But the issue, what we can say is that if we can advance artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things, then the types of problems that we will be able to solve is nearly unlimited, right? Because we can develop distributed expert systems, we can improve telemedicine, we can have advanced surgical robotics, we could actually bring, for instance, a medical corpsman, a robot, to the edge of a battle area that could retrieve wounded soldiers and help them, right? And at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is improve outcomes for patients within the realm of security and privacy, and then things like reducing or deflecting contact in an emergency room. If we can do telemedicine correctly, if we can bring medicine to a kiosk, then we can deflect that type of contact. So really, if you just think about what you could do within the medical arena, it's virtually unlimited, virtually unlimited. And one could imagine, 20, 30 years from now, there would be an AI system that would be a certified doctor, right? But that being said, what I said is I've worked in technology for 40 years, and I studied the transition of technology. And what's really, really intrigued me is what prevents technology from achieving its ultimate potential, right? Because like I said, in 40 years, I've never seen technology achieve what we thought it could achieve. And you can look at, we were told that we would be flying automobiles to work by 1980s, all right? It never happened. And so one would say, well, it's cost, there are other things, but let me challenge the audience to 3 basic things as you're working in this arena. The first one is that we need to be thinking in systems. It's system thinking, because the healthcare arena, whether you're in biomedical research or in delivery of medicine or dentistry, we're talking about a system architecture that is relatively unique. So if you're going to bring in a change, you need to understand that system architecture. And if your solution doesn't fit in that architecture, then you need to work to change the architecture. Okay. The second thing is that the biomedical community and medicine have a specific type of language. There's an ontology, and it's actually been proven that there are scientists in different parts of the world working on exactly the same problem, not knowing about each other because they've named something different, right? And AI can help solve that and bring the community together, but talking the right language. And last is the concept of knowledge, that artificial intelligence systems in the biomedical arena have to get us to a state of truth. And that is, the knowledge that they consume and that they provide must be well grounded. And in biomedical research and any type of research, that's done through things like peer review, through good practice, right? Understanding what people are doing and making sure that whatever information and knowledge is created is properly vetted, right? And if we don't do that, then we can suffer problems. And what I mean is that we don't want to get to a point where we do things that causes people to distrust this technology, especially if we're going to use it in medicine.
So before I jump, because I had a light bulb moment, but
sure,
was there a third that I cut you off before you were going to say?
No, I got him. So the the architecture, the ontology or language, and then finally knowledge.
Okay, I love it. I love it. Hopefully everything there. Power of 3, folks. Okay, Dr. Osborne, let's jump to you. I mean, I don't like going to doctors and I don't like going to hospitals, but I like getting better. And I like when they say, hey, guess the new research has. This idea of transferring in technology and data and science and all this wonderful stuff, a practitioner that you are, can you speak to how do you balance that as someone who's like, technology can enable, but to the point that Chuck's making, whether it's to transition things to where one day people aren't being told you have pancreatic cancer, get your things in order. Can you speak to how there's that art of the possible and innovation is happening, but at the same time, we do have to be conscious of AI and things like, data integrity or provenance of that data?
Man, Pete, there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, this is such a fantastic, thank you so much for pulling this together with all of these great panel and such awesome topics. So your question, we could talk about this for several weeks, but basically the challenge is like, I think what I'm hearing is how do we solve the problems that are hitting us now, that are everyday real life problems, while also looking into the future so we eliminate those problems and can just get on with things. And if that's where it is, I mean, there's one of the exciting things about healthcare, and also one of the opportunities and responsibilities, is there's no shortage of challenges to solve. And quite frankly, this is probably the most exciting time. I'm going to rephrase that. This is the most exciting time in healthcare ever. And quite frankly, it's the most exciting time in the world. Never before have we had challenges so great
And never before have we had the toolbox, the solutions, the foundational opportunities to solve those problems. But there's a chasm. And a good deal of what you're talking about is this chasm between people who are in the trenches in healthcare, who know the technologies can help, but just don't have the time, the bandwidth, the opportunities, the knowledge, the language that Chuck was talking about. And on the other side, you have people who are just creating these amazing technologies, but they don't know the healthcare. And so, you can't just do one without the other. The old way of delivering care, that old paradigm that we have done for hundreds and hundreds of years, that is not suitable, it's not sustainable, it's not functional to solve the problems that we have today. We have a growing older population with multiple comorbidities. We have increasing costs that's just out of control, and we don't have enough providers. Those titanic forces are colliding together. What we can do, though, is we can use technology thoughtfully at that intersection, but it's going to take a village. It's going to take different people from different places, from different perspectives, all bringing it together. And it can't be thrown at providers. And this is another part of your question. I think this is important. You can't just throw technology at people. You can't just do technology for technology's sake. It hasn't worked and it won't work. What we need to do is to understand the problem, to work with people who live that problem and create solutions that thoughtfully solve those problems. It's the people and it's the process that Chuck also talked about. And then it's the technology. The technology is actually is hard, but it's actually the easy part in the big spectrum of things.
Okay, so let me riff and go down to Austin here, because Austin, I mean, being a government employee and a worker, and the compliance component and executive orders and OMB, and being a former Fed that I was, the government does move as quick as it can. It spends a lot of money and there's a lot of regulation. But when I hear toolbox from Dr. Osborne, and Chuck talks about, data and science, and, by the way, folks, biotechnologies, AI, data privacy, security, and cyber are all listed on the OSTP critical emerging technology list for 2024. No news there. That's obvious. Austin, you're pervasive in government. AI is a thing that you're studying and understand and conveying, and we get caught in that. What does the executive order say? What am I supposed to do? How do I sell my tool to the government? But we're talking about AI for healthcare, or for the grid, or for the water treatment. How do you address that as somebody who's probably approached a lot by vendors and folks from the outside wanting to show you a product?
Right. I think something that we're seeing with the new Executive Order 14110, if you're wanting to look it up later, M2410 is the accompanying memo, is a new level of transparency into the amount of AI that the government is already doing. And, that's letting the public know, we're accountable to the public to know what we're doing. It lets vendors know what technologies have already been embraced. I can no longer speak in official capacity for SSA anymore, but during my time there are models that are classified as AI that are older than I am. And I think that speaks to like the level of effort that has gone into these technologies already. I think the kind of inundation we've had, particularly with Gen AI in the public, has drawn so much attention to, well, this is something new. But really, it's something that we've been building on for 40 years. And I think embracing the transparency requirements, the accountability, the NIST risk frameworks, the MLOps lifecycle, being accountable to the public is absolutely essential. And I think that was something that was extremely forward thinking in these new requirements for AI at different agencies, that it's showing just how quickly we're moving. It's facilitating all of these agencies to talk to each other. There's encouragement within the executive orders, the memos, to share with the public, both from a vendor perspective, code sharing, bringing in people for collaboration, making these agencies work together. It's a fantastic pool that it's bringing together to advance AI at the government scale, which is fantastic.
And it's like, let's move beyond. There's compliance, because folks, we're seeing the references being put up there. Thank you, Mike. 2410, or you could 14110. Thank you. There's always an executive order number tied to it, folks. And if, again, I'm appealing to our audience who's probably sitting, how can I get in front of these people and maybe sell something or talk about? If you have something, and we're going to cut to Veer in here because his company's building solutions for the healthcare community, just map it to what's needed. and you have to map it to the mission, whether it's SSA or NIH or DOE, or I don't know where. And I'm sure Dr. Osborne, you can comment on that later, but we'll get into the technology component a bit more and, how to help do that mapping. Chuck, I'm going to come back to you too with, cloud and AI and all that wonderful stuff. Viren, you make solutions. I mean, you're on the other side. You're already supporting from a services standpoint. Talk a bit about how you're crafting some of these tools for government use.
Yeah, so I just want to add what Dr. Thomas was saying is about use of technology to really improve the outcomes, right? Be it the experiences on the clinics, be it the experiences of the provider, making their life easier, right? Improving the clinical outcomes is very, very important. So when we think about solutions, first thing is identifying the right problems, right? So we have to go through each of our segments where we serve and understand the problems, right? And then we see where have we seen those problems in any other verticals, solving from technology perspective, but it's mainly important to bring the business knowledge and technology knowledge together. So the technology people are not just trying to solve a technology problem, it's a business problem that is being solved through technology, right? So alignment of technology to the business outcomes is very, very important. And that's how we start shaping our solutions, be it starting from user experience of members, experience of the connected care team, or be it the reducing the administrative cost of the healthcare from claims processing to prior auth, or even, increasing the clinical outcomes, as I said, and reducing the cost of care. So when we think about producing solutions, when we talk about, let's say, reducing cost of care, right? Where are those points where the cost is mainly going? I mean, reducing the fraud, waste, and abuse, right? Those kind of things we really look at, and then we understand each business area and try to put our solutions there, mainly aligned with the business outcomes, not only for today, but for future. Kind of mapping the overall journey maps of the users who are going to use the technology, not only for today, but for the future as well, and making sure the technology is built in a very agile fashion. So it's a plug and play. So tomorrow, if things changes, technology should be able to adopt quickly, and business does not have to invest again heavily to introduce a new technology. So that's
I love it. Now, so here's the plate where I'm ready to go to Chuck with a question, but I'm seeing some head nodding. Austin, do you want to riff off some of that? Was there something there, or Chuck or Thomas, before I come back to Chuck?
Oh, go ahead, Chuck. I'm eager to hear what you have to say.
Okay.
So, he said it right. I think the key to what he just said was that you're trying to solve a business problem or a medical problem, as opposed to saying technology is my focus. I'm going to pick the technology and try to cram it into where it belongs. That doesn't work, right? So identifying the business problem or the problem you're trying to solve, and then looking at all the potential technologies that you can bring to bear to solve that.
Chuck, let me jump in on that then. Great point, right? As a buyer of or an influencer of, you in Austin, you are the .gov. I was a CTO and I used to say, come on in. I may or may not decide to spend money, but I want to know if you understand my mission and the problems I have, or help me think about the problems they may not be aware of. And that's how I used to think. So, Chuck, cloud, IoT, infrastructure. I mean, you're a cool geek who understands the power of the cloud and for researchers. Can you speak to what does industry need to do to prepare to have those conversations? And then I'm going to ask you the same thing, Austin, from an AI standpoint.
That's a very good question. And I think the first thing, especially, so let's look not only from government perspective, but an industry perspective. And that is, what is driving the problem? What is the problem space? For government, it may be a law, it may be, trying to provide service. And when a technologist comes in with a solution, it's not, here's a technology, does it fit in your space? If they understand my problem, then they can help me to build what I call, and other people who are on here that know me, I use the term elegant solution. And an elegant solution is one that solves the problem, just solves the problem at the lowest possible price, within the constraints that I have to live within. And what I mean is, I don't want to buy a technology that I can only use 10% of. I want a technology that I can use 100% of in my space. And if there are pieces that I can't use now, I need a roadmap to how I can use them.
I love it. And I think that's important when you're selling to government, that you can say, if that's what you need fixed today, here's what we're working on as well. Because I think everybody who's, again, a seller too, and I believe in seeking solving, not buying, selling.
Right.
And I think that's where you can enlighten your federal potential or current customers on
Yeah.
where you're going and taking your product.
Absolutely. The one other element of that is the integration of different technologies. Because what I can't do is buy a technology that prohibits me from advancing in another area. So what I don't want is path dependency. I don't want to buy a technology that makes me stick with that technology and only that technology as things
Vendor
change in the
lock-in.
future. Right.
Roger. Okay.
And not just vendor lock-in, but technology lock-in.
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Correction. Well said. All right, Austin, I'm coming to you. But Mike Burkholz, you and I went through a few documents earlier today that I'd like our audience, which, by the way, to our guests, there's some really great questions coming in. If you want to chat away and do that for the audience, that's great. Austin, floor is yours on that same discussion about the buy, sell, problem, seek, solve.
Right. I'll give you an anecdote of every time that I mentor students or data scientists that come to me, they always come with a tool they want to use. You know, I need to use recurrent neural networks or graph neural nets or, you know, LLMs. And they come with the tool and not the problem. And, you know, it's a paradigm shift to get people to think in terms of find your problem, pick the tool and the simplest tool to achieve it. I am a big fan of Occam's razor in AI. The simpler the model, the more explainable, the more interpretable it is, which on the government side, we have a level of interpretability, particularly in healthcare, where doctors, patients don't like if this black box neural net is generating its own features and we don't know what those represent anymore. They may not be humanly interpretable anymore. And so I think getting us to embrace using the right tool and not the tool for the sake of the technology it represents.
I love that.
And I think as cloud providers, companies begin to prepare to embrace, you know, this onslaught of federal contracts is, you know, 10 years ago, if you asked me what is the biggest challenge to AI, I would have said data and availability. Now we live in a world that one person living their daily life can generate up to 18 terabytes per day. The total around the world, we're generating 412 million terabytes per day as a society, and 90% of the world's digital footprint was created since 2023, which is insane. SSA, NIH operate on petabyte scale. You know, that's no small contract to work with when it comes to data. That's no trivial infrastructure. And I think we have to be prepared for what that means. And as a government, as a society, we're extremely data rich and insights poor. And cloud, this type of computing, well-articulated use cases in AI is essential to finding patterns and solutions in the huge amounts of data that we now find ourselves with.
All right. Two things in there that were tweetable. Data-rich insights port. Love that. And something along the lines of don't just come with the tool and not know the problem.
Right.
And I think that's amazing and well said. Dr. Osborne, let me come up to you. You've worked in government. You're a MD. I mean, I still think of you as like the stethoscope and I'm going to go, but you're a technologist too. When you hear these gentlemen talk who are responsible for investment in or influencing the investment in technology like AI, and you're focused on precision medicine, can you speak to that now in the industry side where, yeah, you're at Microsoft, but you're the chief medical officer? What's this? Riff off some of this.
Oh yeah, geez. I mean, I think there's more similarities than differences. You know, the people on this call and the people listening, I think foundationally, we all want to solve problems. We all want to help people. We all want to have purpose and meaning in doing things that are impactful for others, especially in government, but everywhere. You know, one of the things I want to riff on a little bit, what was said earlier, is the alignment. The alignment is so key. Any project is going to be challenging. It's going to have ups and downs. And if a project has hyper alignment, in other words, everyone is getting something that they want out of it, business is getting, you know, their publications or the road to FDA approval because you're working with a partner who's excited. You have, you know, industry working with the private sector or with government, and you're solving problems that people want to address that they don't have the tools for, and you're achieving goals, you're contributing to the mission. When you can really tune into those things that hyper tuned into the mission and the alignment, that's when things really start to happen. That's interesting, and that's when those projects that will take time really have sticking power. The other thing that I think was mentioned is great is like cloud, for sure. I mean, this is the future. On-prem, for so many reasons, is not going to be sustainable. It just doesn't have the security, elasticity, or anything else. But if we want to use advanced analytics and specifically AI, you need cloud. And so they're not two different things. They are one and the same. They go hand in hand. And so there's so many things that we can talk about. The other thing that I think was alluded to a little bit is, or we're leading up to, is AI is going to be, or these, whatever you want to call it, like Austin said, it's been around for a while, but there's going to be an arms race. There's an arms race between those who have the tools and who don't have the tools. Government needs to get up to speed. It's happening whether we like it or not. We need to be in the game, not just to be able to say we have the merit in the discussion about the ethics of the use. We need to be using the tools to be at the table, but also to drive the direction that's most advantageous and inclusive, to guide policy with the right level of safeguards, not too much, not too little. I mean, if you do too much, we're not going to be in the game. And that's another thing. Not using the tools because you're worried about safety is also a risk for safety, because these tools, when used and implemented appropriately, can radically transform the lives of people in positive ways. And not just for the people that we take care of, not just the people under our charge, but for the bottom 8 billion in the world. Because when we do this well in one place, then it's scalable. It's radically scalable. And that's why we need to get it right, because we can do harm with good intent. And so if we do it well, if we do it right, then these tools can be configured to different people and cultures and societies and really transform the lives of everyone and uplift so many people. One last thing, there are likely Einsteins and Mozarts sweeping floors and pushing boulders in the far corners of the world. These tools, when used correctly, have the ability to make us more human, to offload the repetitive, time-consuming drudgery, to free up bandwidth so we can be rested, creative, and thoughtful. These tools can help us tackle the biggest challenges in the world so we can transform the lives of everyone in the world.
Okay, so I'm going to come to Viren, who's somebody who, like yourself, Microsoft, yes, having those conversations. You're a former CIO, Viren, and for Chuck and Austin too, it's how do I get to have those conversations in a safe harbor? And let me just say this, the government is doing their part. I'm looking at documents that my colleague Mike is putting up there, and I encourage everybody who sells into the government, please just read the executive summaries. HHS is the Sector Risk Management Agency, the SRMA, for the public health, healthcare, critical infrastructure sector. Okay. They are the agency, and within, and we discussed, there's a lot of places that you have to navigate. ARPA-H, Advanced Research Project Agency Healthcare. They have an upgrade program, that is an acronym, upgrade, and DigiHeals project. It's awfully compelling. And again, I mentioned, if you want to know from a critical infrastructure standpoint, those who know me know I love talking about critical infrastructure. Healthcare, public health is one. And that's not a government thing. That is the sector. So with that, Mike's been putting up a lot of the documents for those who are the cyber geeks in the room or on the call, the cybersecurity performance goals for that very sector, the global health security strategy, and most notably that I was researching this morning, healthcare sector cybersecurity. We're not going to go down that deep route. We know cybersecurity is something that is scary, but has to be considered similarly to AI. Viren, let's talk about your perspective and experiences of having those conversations with the right people in government.
Yeah, so thank you, Pete. I mean, just to add to what Dr. Chuck was saying around understanding the full ecosystem of technology is very, very important. So for the companies like us, who mainly are the technology solutions and services provider working with the government entities, it's very, very important to understand the full technology ecosystem and the solutions that we are bringing to the table. How is that going to fit into that ecosystem? Not increasing the cost rather should have an impact on reducing the total cost of ownership, right? So we need to come up with that plan, that how is that going to integrate with the existing technologies that they have, and what is the problem are we solving right now, which is in hand, rather than selling the whole suite of technology solutions and products and whatnot, right? So I think it's very, very critical for companies like us who are more solutions and services provider to really understand the whole bigger ecosystem, bigger problems, and why those problems are happening. Come up with the solutions and say what solutions we are bringing. This is how is that going to fit within this ecosystem. This is our plan to implement it, right? And then this will be the total cost of ownership of that, including your ecosystem. That all has to be thought of in the beginning itself before awarding any contracts, I would say, right? Second thing is, what we have seen is like the traditional larger players have been pretty much dominant into the government market, right? And I'll really hope that governments are really encouraging innovations by inviting newer innovators, by doing a little bit balanced view of bringing in the innovators maybe through request for solutions to understand what solutions are they bringing to the table, right? And will they be able to deliver it or not, right? So just having a little bit on investment in understanding the solutions and the problems solving that's happening on the commercial side, and how that can be implemented on the government side, be the early adopters in a nice balanced way. It's I would say the right way to go about and think about it.
Viren, thank you. And that perspective is helpful. And again, I want to say to the audience, because we're going to come back up here to Chuck. And again, feel free to comment on what everybody's talking about, because I have 50 million questions that I'm not going to get to. But Viren, building applications, purpose-built applications. If people go, you want to check out Innova Solutions, there's click on healthcare and just see the great stuff that's being purpose-built, custom-built. And I think that's what, Chuck, you were saying, is like we focus at the least common denominator before you sell us a Rolls Royce, and I never know about capabilities I'm going to have. I think that's what a lot of government and industry struggle with, which is you're buying something and you don't even know if you're going to use it, when you really just need something now and maybe it could evolve into something in the future. So I took away that from this segment of the discussion. I wanted to give a shout out to the FDA. Mike, if you haven't already, the Breakthrough Devices Program. Remember, we're the IoT working group. Smart medicine, smart telemedicine. There's a program that the FDA runs, which is voluntary, and it blew my mind with like those who want to know, where do I go? You don't always go to the HHS CIO. You got to look at these operating divisions. You got to find the right people. You got to do your homework. It doesn't take long. I joked about finding, where does Austin actually work? And by the time I got down there and saw what they do, it's like, holy cow, that's the group. So, do your homework and go and have a great conversation. Chuck, let's continue this thread. And I'm going to put out there the integration of IoT and precision medicine and AI and cyber. I'm looking at my notes that prepared me for this, and the existing impacts, right? We talked about, I think, generally speaking, how AI and IoT can enable the patient outcome, patient engagement, streamlining workflows. I mean, it sounds like technology stuff and research efficiency. Austin and Thomas, you said that. But let's get like visionary for a minute. Future impacts of these AI and protecting data, predictive medicine, personalized medicine, remote patient monitoring, mitigating cyber threats, data-driven decision-making, wearable devices. Let's put on that, like, give the people hope that some cool stuff's happening. Chuck, can you want to start with that, or?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I
for
mentioned one at the intro. Like, imagine in the Department of Defense on the battle edge, having a corpsman that is a robot that isn't fearful, isn't in danger, can go out and retrieve wounded soldiers and and help them, give them plasma, whatever that is. Or think of a medical unit kiosk where people aren't feeling well and they're in a mall. They go to a kiosk and it tells them, this is your likely problem. Now, I wouldn't say that would happen without a doctor. A medical doctor is a knowledgeable individual that we trust. And these systems, if they're trustworthy, could provide multi-level medical services or advice that could ultimately lead someone, like I say, to deflect contact with, it was mentioned by Dr. Osborne and others that we're being overwhelmed, the number of doctors that we have versus the number of potential patients, and also including the 8 billion people that or the billions of people that don't have doctors. We're now would be able to provide medical services, or at least medical advice, to those masses, right? But in any area you could possibly think of, regardless if there's medicine involved, or there's medical services or medical research involved, then artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things can bring that to multiple points. And it now becomes a distributed system, whereas if I need medical services, I've got to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But now that service can be provided to multiple points. It can be broadcast, right?
So let me jump down to Austin, because I'm hearing like folks saying, yeah, I need it at the ready. I want to have it at my fingertips. I want to trust that the data is, and this is where I think we're not saying people are going to not have jobs, right? Workforce development, bringing in the right tools, learning how to understand and leverage AI versus having to be an AI coder or something. Can you speak to some of what Chuck was saying with a little bit of that hope element?
Yeah, Chuck and Pete, and I think I'll speak to Dr. Osborne's earlier point as well, and Tiffany's question about bias in AI. And I want to speak. I always have an executive order for it: EO 14091 and 095.
Get them up, Mike.
Which we're seeing a paradigm shift in the language of how we speak about AI, particularly in the government sector. We don't say equality in AI. We talk about equity. And all of the new executive orders, the guidance, I serve on a interagency working group headed by DOJ, talking about equity in AI and emerging technologies. And what we're seeing here is, through the transparency that we're having with particularly rights impacting use cases, is that there are requirements for bias assessment, bias mitigation. So the data scientists, the general counsels, the policy divisions, all kinds of government agencies are working to solve these issues of how do we make AI equitable. And they have to figure that out for the use cases to remain in place. When I was at Social Security, I led the Equals team, the equity advancement for legacy systems, to help understand bias against protected groups within our existing AI use cases. And what we're seeing is an embracing, that is an area of research, active research in academia. There's not complete agreement. So we're seeing, statisticians, data scientists, social scientists coming together to try and articulate how we achieve these things that are equitable, rights advancing, trustworthy, reliable. And I think it's a beautiful thing to see how they're doing this. I've seen use cases of causal fairness analysis, which is an idea using Bayesian statistics to make assumptions about the context that someone lives and how bias might enter into systems that use those type of data. And I think the embracing of that technology is essential in healthcare and how we navigate AI in healthcare's future and its continuation in the world that we're in.
Thank you. And thank you, Tiffany, for the question. But thank you also, Austin, for doing that weaving of a tapestry through just everything from equity to AI. And we know that those who follow the Justice 40 program or are putting into place, the parts of America that still don't have internet access, but access to information, we have to be thinking about that. And I appreciate you bringing that up. Right. Dr. Osborne and Viren, let's continue this discussion. I mean, we're seeing some questions coming in. Jorge, great question about leading the solutioning. And I keep hearing it's a collaborative effort if you can get to the right people. And I think knowing there's a lot. You have to prepare for that conversation. Thomas, comment on some of this hope component.
Yeah, for sure. So there's so many things that we could talk about. So based on that last question, I've established and led a lot of public-private partnerships. And when I started doing that, a lot of people said, oh my gosh, it's too hard, it's too difficult, there's too much bureaucracy, it can't be done. And it was hard and was all those things. But as you do more of it, you start to figure out the path, the things that need to be done, all the different components of it. And it becomes easier for an individual. But now I think there's a big trend because there's a public demand that we move faster, and we need to leverage the strategic advantage of our country, which is diversity of people, thought, tools, resources. And the public-private partnerships is a huge part of that. I want to go back to another thought that people brought up. about how AI is going to replace us. I mean, you think we can go back to the Luddites when they were worried that, automating the, manufacture of clothing would destroy people's livelihoods because everything was sort of hand sewn at one time in England. That's true. There's going to be change. There's going to be disruption. So it's incumbent on all of us to lift everyone up. And as you were saying earlier, you got to upskill the workforce. And the thing is, it's not just sort of an option. We really have to do this. AI is moving forward. It's doesn't matter. I mean, it's going forward whether or not an individual or a department wants to take hold of it or not. AI will not replace humans. However, those who don't use AI will be replaced by those who do. And this concept is not new. AI is just a tool that's making it go a lot faster. The other thing, like, oh my gosh, like AI, geez, like it's happening to us. It's overwhelming. Like that's a natural thing, especially when things are going at breakneck speeds. But it doesn't have to happen to us. We don't have to be passive observers in this accelerated change, because our fate is not our destiny. We have control over what this is going to be, but we have to do this in a way that everyone comes together in a thoughtful way. Now, there's so many other things about the trends in the future. If I have time, I'll try my best to split it up into 3 categories, 3 phases: what's happening now, what's happening in the midterm, and what's happening in the future, just in big categories. And we can really dive deep into all of this stuff. But right now, there's all of them are kind of overlapping. The earliest business wins are happening and are being seen with efficiencies. And so we have to do this in healthcare. We spend $4.5 trillion in healthcare, 20% of our GDP. We can spend that money on other things, not to mention improved healthcare. And so we're seeing this in many different ways. There's not one tool. There's a proliferation of assistants and co-pilots and all these things. It's like a Toyota way. You take all these little parts and you just improve it a little bit. And so not only is it like a direct bottom line financial, win, but when you think about faster care, more effective, efficient care is better care. So imagine, unfortunately, someone's going to have appendicitis and they're sitting in the ED and they're waiting, they're groaning. Oh my gosh, I have this pain, but everyone's working on paper and clipboards and they don't know who's needs the care the fastest, and it's tough to prioritize and to know what's going on. You take a system and improve all of those inefficiencies, and that patient who has the appendicitis is going to get seen faster. And now, instead of having a ruptured appendicitis, it's going to take 2 weeks in the hospital and tons of money and pain and suffering. You can solve that with a 1-day outpatient treatment. Time matters. Time matters with everything, with stroke, with appendicitis, with wellness, you name it. All right, that's one category. We could talk about for forever. 2,
Yes.
We've talked about this another thing. Data is so critical in this advancing age of AI, but data is going to be foundational. It doesn't matter how great your model or your algorithm is. If the data has problems, we're only going to amplify those problems with these advanced tools. So the foundational data integrity, those issues that have always been with us, no matter what kind of analytics we do, that is more and more important. There are biases in the data. There's inaccuracies in the data. We need to foundationally address those before we put something else fancy on top of it. So another thing that was mentioned by everybody on our call here is we need to accelerate. First of all, we have no shortage of data, lots of data, and it's only growing. But what we haven't done a good job is turning that data into information, that information into knowledge, and that knowledge is into wisdom. We have tools that can accelerate that. Now, and there's democratization that people are talking about that allow us to use tools, low-code tools to do that. But if you don't understand the foundations of all that stuff and you can put something that automates it on top of it, we can do harm with good intent. There's dangers there as well as great benefit. And then, last thing, moving further afield, increase of compute power is opening up huge opportunities in so many different things. Instead of looking at one domain, like an electronic health record databases, which I've done a ton of research in, we can look at multimodal analysis to bring genomics and imaging and all kinds of other stuff. You can have digital twins where you can have a digital representation of somebody that you can interrogate and try experiments on without hurting somebody. We have virtual assistants in surgeries. We can provide care in rural communities that's never happened before. Bring experts from the cities into the communities in underserved countries. Assistive technologies, small language models, large language models you can carry in your pocket. There's extreme longevity and advances that are happening right now, brain computer interfaces. We could talk about this forever. The one thing that's important about all of this is if we don't lift up everybody, if we aren't intentional about making sure everyone has access to these tools, there is a significant and great risk that people will be left behind, and we widen those gaps because the advantages are significant. Those who have the tools will be much better off than those who don't. And so we need to be really intentional about making sure everyone has access and knowledge about how these tools can be used.
Thank you. And that, I liked that journey of where we are today, where we were and where we're going. And I hope a lot of people, I saw some questions coming in. So please, we got 4 minutes and I'm going to use all 4 of them. Parting shot time, call to action. I'm going to start with Viren. Viren, you know, we could have talked for hours and for the team, but we talked about a lot. And I love the fact that it was really around partnership. So what's something you want to leave with the audience about what drives you and motivates you and why people should be giving you a call?
I'll say we are living in a very, very interesting time of technology where it's really increasing the life expectancy of all of us. Also the helping us to live healthier and longer. The use of AI we are already seeing across predictive analytics, personalized medicine, accuracy of medical imaging and whatnot. So my thing would be, as everybody said, use of the technology in the right fashion with the right data in a very balanced fashion in a safe, secure way is the way to go. If as long as it's equitable and it's not leaving anybody behind, is the right way to go. Putting in the right solution, which is going to solve the real problems, and people can see the value out of it. Those are the few things I would say.
Slam dunk. I love it, Viren. Chuck.
So fill me in on what
we're just doing parting shots. We're finishing it out. Yeah.
Okay.
What do you want to leave with the audience? Call to action.
So I was answering a question here on ontology. National Library of Medicine is big on ontology. So the parting shots, keep in mind that this is a system of systems, right? That we need to integrate into an existing architecture, and that we have to understand what that community actually needs and what will serve it the best, rather than a technology that impinges on some small thing, see how it fits into the big picture. And what I will say, going back to something that you'd asked before, is when industry is working with government, keep in mind that government is not necessarily the expert in that particular area. We have experts, but we need industry to provide that expertise and to bring it to bear to help solve the problems.
Well said, Chuck. Sorry about interrupting you. You could finish that chat.
I did.
Austin,
I apologize. But
no
the
worries.
National Library of Medicine has a big ontology effort. They're the experts in biomedical ontology.
Connecting dots, brother. Okay, Austin, parting shot.
Yeah, it's just that I am so excited and hopeful with AI in the future of government and where it stands now. Seeing it from, all the agencies working together, interviewing different use cases at all different agencies. People are active, they're researching, they are recognizing the business need, they're finding the tools with internally and with vendors, and it's converging on something that is wonderful. And I'm excited for the future of AI in healthcare.
Well, we're excited that NIH has you, and I'll be seeing you around the circuit, man. It was great to meet you leading up to this, and keep making a difference, man. Thomas, parting shot.
Man, this is such a great time to be alive and to do this stuff. It's a huge opportunity and responsibility for all of us. But, we can boil the ocean, but one way to do it is to effectively solve problems that people want addressed, do one at a time, and it'll snowball and we'll continue.
I love it. Mike B., my brother from another mother, do you have a closing comment to bookend us?
Oh man, no, I just love this both as a government practitioner and then personal interest outside of my government and day-to-day life. Just fascinating opportunities to apply technology to solve some of these medical challenges that we have in our communities and that we face, and really look forward to continuing the conversation with a lot of these guys and hearing more. So thanks for hosting this, Pete.
Oh, yeah, co-host, buddy. It's you and me. And again, I know it's a personal topic for you. So, Mike, thanks for bringing that and leading up to it. So, Dr. Osborne, Dr. Bazidlo, Dr. Lynch, and all but some other cool title from my man Viren, former CIO, former doctor of technology. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you to ACT-IAC. Thank you for those who attended. We had over 100 registrants, 40 some people stayed on. We're going to put this out in case you missed it. But until then, have a great rest of your day and keep doing what you all do so well. Thank you. We hope we educated, informed, and enlightened you.
Thank you, Pete.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much, everyone.